if you would like to. I don't know if you still can you?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So for those of you who are catching it right this second, Krystal is actually getting her stream going before we actually do the intro. So we just talked about it just as we were coming on live. So just going to give her a second to do that. And so let me know when you are good.
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Oh, there it is. It even shows up on here. Awesome. Okay. So now I've just lost what it is that I'm doing. So Geegado Megwan Kwe here. Okay. There's feedback that I was concerned about.
Yeah, I can hear a little bit of feedback.
There it is. Okay. So I got that stopped. Okay. So let's try this again. So Geegado Megwan Kwe here for another Chatting with Wisdom. This is our weekly interview series, and I am super excited to be back. Krystal is going to be joining us today, and so I'm super excited that she is here to share. My grandson is at the door screaming his head off, the door trying to get in. His mom's dragging him away. So today we're actually going to be talking. So Krystal Hilly is, did you say the E? Just Hill?
No, it's a silent E, but that's okay.
So Hill. Okay, so Krystal
Yes.
Hill. So Krystal is the visionary creator behind the author archetype system and the CEO of Hill House Publishing. So we're going to discover more about her work at Hill House, or we're going to connect, or you can connect with her on LinkedIn or Facebook. So Krystal is a leading expert in helping purpose-driven entrepreneurs and coaches transform their stories into powerful forces and change. Through her strategic and intuitive guidance, she empowers clients to overcome imposter syndrome, gain clarity, and become a best-selling author. And so today we're going to talk about the alchemy of words, transform your story into a powerful force for change. So Krystal is going to share her expertise on how writing a book can heal your story and inspire others. Learn how to uncover the core theme of your life journey, structure it into Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and use it to amplify your impact and confidence. So I am super excited that you are here and back. This is my first, I was just talking to you before we came on, that I have been off for from full time over the course of the summer. So like now it's fall and I'm back into the full time. So you are my first guest or the weekly interview series. So I'm super excited that you signed up and that you joined us for our very first fall series. So welcome, Krystal. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me back. I really enjoyed our last conversation. Can't wait to see what magic we'll bring to the readers, not the readers, the viewers and listeners today.
Well, and they could be readers because they may be reading the transcript, right?
Very true.
So it could be. You never know. So tell me a little bit about what you've been up to since we chatted last, because it's been at least a year, I think, since we've connected.
It's been at least a year, yeah. So since we last chatted, I moved from Victoria to the Brisbane area. So it's like a 2,000-kilometer drive that we did over 3 days because I just got called to being up here. The community here is beautiful. I'm really integrated here now, and yeah, my kids are loving their school as well. So that's been what's been going on the personal front. I'm loving to be also in the warmer weather. You know, it's very unusual for me to have 30 degrees in August. You know, being in Australia, that's the last month of winter. So that's been very nice. And professionally, with it, I've created a new. It's always evolving. Everything's always evolving. I'm now doing a solo book incubator where I'm really helping, aspiring authors to write their solo book. And I'm loving the discovery that happens in that incubator and how everybody is finding their book or their book is finding them. And also creating some 5 author anthologies where rather than having like the 24 or however many people go into like a big anthology, just having something that's a little bit more intimate and also giving everybody opportunity to really be seen in the book. So that's what I'm excited about at the moment.
That's beautiful. So then when somebody's doing that, so is it multiple chapters that they're writing, or?
I think it depends on that sort of is on a one individual basis. So they each get 10,000 words. They could write 3 chapters, or they could just write one big chapter with lots of subsections.
Okay,
I guess it just depends on, on what they want to write about and what makes sense for their topic.
beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. And so, and I love my anthologies. So like, I think that that's incredible. That is how I became an author for the very first time, was writing in an anthology. And then I've done several of them since. And so I've done my own solo, but it's a journal, it is a journal. But it's not an actual book. So like, that's my next goal, is to get my book published. And but yeah, so like, it's just all these little things that are so important, because everybody has a story, right?
Yes.
So everybody has a book. So whether it is fiction or nonfiction, or part of our own journey, it is incredible to be able to see how people and because you're a publisher, you probably get to see that a lot more. So a friend of mine actually entrusted her chapter. She's part of an anthology, and she actually entrusted her chapter for feedback. And so it was like, oh, this is incredible. And so it was really nice to be able to read it before it actually gets put out, sent off to the publisher. So that was actually really cool. So, but you get to see that all the time, right?
Yes, and we get to, what I do is I get to see their first draft, and then we get to look at, okay, how does it need more of your story? How you're holding back because you're wanting to be professional, or are you doing too much of your story and you're not sharing enough of your, professional tools that you can share? So I work with each author and help them to fine tune it, to really tease out their core message so that it kind of pops off, and it's not just a meandering story with, but instead we're creating a really clear beginning, middle, and end. And yeah, that journey in itself sometimes is phenomenal, because sometimes I had a lady, and she had like 3 or 4 different themes throughout her chapter, that all were important to her. And I as the reader was getting seasick. I was like, oh my God, where are we going? We're going here now, or we're going there now? What's going?
Yep.
And it was all woven into her story. But so I helped her to clarify, well, what is your core theme? Like, what is that main theme where the other ones are branches that are branching off? You can still write about them, but let's just anchor it with this in this one.
Yep.
One theme. So that's the work I get to do, and then that gives them clarity to show up differently as well in their professional. We show up differently online, show up differently when they're talking to potential clients, because they're so clear now. It's not I can do all of this. It's like, no, this is my bedrock, and there's branches coming off it. So that's it. Yeah, I love that work. Helping these purpose-led entrepreneurs gaining that real clarity and a deeper, more embodied way than they had before.
Well, and when I actually go back and read my original chapter, like my very first chapter, that was one of the things that, like, we didn't get that clarity from the publisher that I used. And so, or that, like, I was in that anthology. And so I didn't get that same feedback. It was like just correcting a few spelling things or grammar. But it sounds okay. But then, like, as I've learned to be able to kind of like hone in and master more into my writing, that's one of the things that I've noticed, is that my very first chapter was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I actually put that in writing, right? And because it is kind of like, it doesn't flow as nicely as the other chapters. So my second one was a little better, my third one was better, and so like now it just makes it, like, even my blogs, like, it's just, I see a huge difference in being able to kind of hone in, like you said, of like not being all over the place of what it is that you're trying to say. So it's really great to have people that give you that honest feedback so that you can actually get that. And so, but yeah, so like, I love that journey that we get to go, and not that like there was anything wrong with the first chapter. It was just like, I see the difference, right? It's just huge in how it all kind of shifted and did that. So.
Yeah, and it is a journey. And I think people have that expectation that their first draft has to be the draft that goes into the book but I always say your first draft will never make it in the book, because often what when we're talking about story, the first draft often is for us as writers to have that verbal diarrhea, to just get it out of our system. Everything just needs to be purged. Everything needs to be externalized so that we can see it and then say, okay, now let me step back here. What of that is actually relevant for the reader, not just relevant to myself, because we don't want to put something that's self-indulgent into a book that doesn't serve the reader. And so then we fine tune. And what I always hold on very strongly to, a quote by Les Brown, he says, never share a story without a teaching point, and never make a teaching point without a story. And so that's what I live by.
I love
and that's
that.
what I teach. Yes.
That makes so much sense, because like it really does. Like, so why are you writing it? Like, what's the purpose, right?
That's
And
right.
so like same as like if I'm teaching a lesson or doing any type of teaching, it's always like, okay, what's the point? Like, why are we doing this? And so like that's one of the things that I've been working on for my retreat that's coming up in October. And I haven't done one in a couple of years. So like it's just really, it's like going back into, okay, so what am I doing in this lesson? What's the purpose? What are they going to get out of this? How are they going to do that? And I write out, like, even though I don't follow it when I'm there, I just kind of go with it. Like I flow with it, but I write it out so that I have an idea in my head as to like, hey, what's the point? Am I just going to kind of, like you said earlier, like kind of meandering around in what it is that, what's the lesson? What is it that they're supposed to take from it? How are they supposed to, because it's all about growth, right? So when somebody's reading a book of that nature, it's about their own personal growth, right?
Yeah, so I see it as like a transformational book, and each chapter, like if they're writing a whole book, you have that overall transformation that you would have when you're running a retreat. The retreat is about, you're going from, say, doubt to clarity, or you're going from imposter syndrome to fully being embodied in your highest potential, whatever that arc might be that we're identifying. And then we look at, okay, what are the stepping stones along the journey that somebody needs to take in order to make that massive journey going from one extreme to another. And so each chapter then has a mini transformation in it, that you're probably similar to, all the aspects. It might not be linear, but all the aspects that we need to look at that help. And that's where the authors bring in their tools that help them on that journey. So they might introduce tapping or meditation or visualization, all helping to get somebody to that end result.
Yeah, absolutely. And like same as my the friend who I was talking about, who's in the midst of her chapter, it's about her journey of how she worked through her postpartum, and she's like, and I've known her story for a long time, and so but it was beautiful to actually listen to like how everything flowed and where it all began and ended, and how she was able to like overcome and where she's at now. And so like, and it's huge in terms of like, and like I said, I've been part of that journey with her throughout. So it was like a great honor to be able to read that part of the journey. And so like definitely looking forward to being able to help promote her chapter in as she gets into that stage. So it's beautiful to be able to do that. So what are so like if somebody they're wanting to get this started, so like tell me a little bit more, because you were talking about the different things that you do, so just to kind of clarify a little bit more for people. So like if they were wanting to either get into a solo book or into an anthology, how do they work with you? Like how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have in the anthologies, both courses, actually, we have initially weekly meetings where we go. I'm very big on, let's plan this out first. So we have a roadmap, because you don't, I always use the architects. The architect doesn't send their builders onto the property and say, here, build the house. There's plans and everything that get drawn out first, so that we don't, so that the house doesn't fall down halfway through. The same goes for writing a book or even a chapter. So just becoming really clear. It's like the typical things. what is the core idea of your story? We write that out. And I actually so then what is the problem you're solving? What's the solution you're providing? What is the transformation that your reader goes on? And who is that reader? Because it's really important that, just like in marketing, we speak to just one person. And often that one person is us, say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, however, 20 years ago. But it's something that we know deeply and intimately. So it's almost like we're writing to a younger version of ourselves, because we know that person intimately. So we clarify all of that. And then what I do is I also work with the archetypes of the author archetypes that I've developed, which are based on the 4 elements. So in the planning phase, we work with the element of earth, and I quite often bring in my background of meditation and coaching to do an activation or a visualization around really tapping into that earth element, so to come from, so to overcome the overwhelm, because we can so easily, when we're looking at, okay, I'm going to write a book, got so many ideas, what am I going to do? That's the element of air. But when we're planning, we need to really drop into the earth. And so once we've got that outline, regardless of whether it's a chapter or a book, we then activate the element of air, where we bring in all of the things, the curiosity, what stories could I share? What examples could I bring? What exercises could I draw on to really demonstrate this teaching point that I want to make, that transformation? And everything comes on the page, like a massive mind map. Once that's done, we drop back into earth and we kind of structure it out. And then the water and the fire, they're really for the storytelling. So the water, when we're writing from a place of water, I might do an activation and I say, okay, we're really tapping into the emotions and the inner depth, and we're using questions that really get us into the unconscious. And then I might give them in the meetings also an exercise to just journal about a specific topic from that place of water. And what comes out in terms of the writing is often phenomenal. Like people get these massive realizations and aha moments, and it goes so deep. And then the same with the fire. The fire is the charismatic storyteller, that person that we're drawn to the campfire, we want to hear the stories, and how can we make them vivid, expressive language, etc. So we talk about that, we activate that, and we write from that place, and maybe another aspect of the story or the chapter. So all of that happens, and then they go away and they write it, or they interview each other to, some people don't like writing, so they're better storytellers verbally. And then we interview each other, or they interview each other to then get the chapters going. And I think one thing I was hearing some of your audience say, well, I don't like planning that much. That sounds way too in the head, because, like you were saying, I plan it out, but then I go with the flow. And and follow the moment and follow the muse or the intuition or the room in if it's an event. And I think it's the same with book writing. Like, that's why I always say I do it strategically and intuitively. It's that beautiful dance between having the framework and the structure, and then allowing the intuition to take over. Also in when it comes to the writing in particular, to allow that freedom. And some books lend themselves more for that kind of flow than others. But there's always that dance between strategy and intuition.
And it really does it really does make that difference, right? So like I said, with me, it's like just being able to kind of get it out to like know what it is that people are going to like. And how I first started was the same as like the way that I would write or whatever. It would be like everything was like, I was type A, so like everything was like I'd have to follow exactly the way that it was. And then my first retreat, that was great. Everybody followed the way that it was supposed to. And I didn't have any hiccups, and I had everything written out, and we knew exactly what was happening. The second time that I did a retreat, it was like, this didn't work so well, because like other people had, like, there was just different dynamics and different things that were happening. And it was like, okay, we're off agenda. Like, we're not even on where we're supposed to be. So then the third time was like, then I learned that it's like, okay, so have my outline so that I know what it is that I'm doing, so that I have my material. But if I need to shift, then I can shift. And so that was really helpful in order to be able to get that that piece. But and so now when I'm writing, that's one of the things. So like, it's like, what's my outline? And so doing my outline and getting that going. And so then that allows things to flow, where it makes a huge difference that way. So like when I did my solo chapter, like my solo book, I should say, then it made a huge difference in terms of, okay, like what is it that I want? So like I knew the 12 months and how I wanted to be able to outline that. And then I was able to come back to, okay, like fill up this part and then fill up this part. But like the overall flow was exactly what it is that you were talking about, right? So so it gave me time to, and then of course the edits and then whatever else that comes from all the rest of it. But it took a while for me to be able to get that done, but it was like really rewarding to be able to do that and that piece, right?
And I think once you get a master at your craft, like, having done a couple of retreats, having them under your belt, then you can go off topic because you know what you're coming back to.
Yeah.
And you will, I've done a lot of retreats myself as well, and you know how to
Yeah,
it creates its own magic, like that's orchestrated, and it's like, okay, now we're going to come back here, and you find a way to make it look like it was always meant that way.
Yeah, and it really is. It's incredible to be able to see how that happens. Like I said, I haven't done in a couple.
And you could never plan that.
No, it's just that this person had this experience, brought this part in, had this aha moment, and then led into this whole piece, and then just kind of brought it all together, where it just kind of opened up. And then when you come back into the Sunday, like when we're all leaving, it's like, oh my gosh, like where did all this magic come from, right? So it's beautiful.
Exactly. And I think that you can translate that into a book writing as well, because the way it would work in a book writing, you've got your outline, you've got, exactly where you're going, and then you meet somebody and you have an incredible experience and you have an amazing realization. You think, oh my God, I need to put that into the book. Now, where on earth can that go? And and you find the magical place where, the perfect place for it to go into the book. And it expands, because it is a living, breathing organism. It's an extension of yourself, and it is like birthing. Yeah, it's birthing something that comes from within you and through you. I mean, so often, there's is it Elizabeth Gilbert? I think she wrote that book, something about magic, and she's saying that the ideas are everywhere. And we are conduits of the ideas, and they come to us. And if we don't act on them or catch them, they go to somebody else, because we're not an open, inviting door, right? And that's to say, so that's a really interesting way of looking at it, that we are the conduits of the ideas that need to be birthed at this time onto the planet. And the universe is going to go, God, source, whatever we want to call it, is giving us the experiences that can help us to become that vehicle to transmit that message at this time.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference in terms of, so like my background is addiction and mental health. And so like I've worked with a number of different people over the years, but my own personal experiences has also played a role in how I work with others and how I have worked with others. And so so it's made a huge difference that way as to how that flows. So tell me, so what project do you have on the go right now?
So I've got the solo book incubator is open for enrollments for another cohort. I'm also got 3 spots available for people to come and work with me one-on-one on their book project, helping them. And I've got 2 books, 2 of these 5 author anthologies open, one about relationships. There's 2 spots left in that one. It's called Beyond Dependence, Creating Empowered, Authentic and Resilient Relationships, and looking for different angles towards relationships. And the other one is around shame, Beyond Shame. So I'm looking for stories of people who have released shame, or people who are helping others to release their shame. And I think that also brings me to that point that I wanted to make around, how can stories make us a bigger person? How can writing help us to embody our story, and to embrace our story and to show up as who we were meant to be? And it's really, I'm working with one client at the moment, and he's a VIP solo book client, and he wants to release his hate towards his dad. He's been working on that for, in numerous ways, with healing and all sorts, but he realizes that in order to get to that final bit, or to help him fully, writing down his story is going to help him release. And so his book is going to be called Release. He's very successful in his career, and this aspect people don't know about him. So he's been asked to write his story because he's such an inspiring mentor for so many. So to help him release as he's writing it for others to help them release is really, really powerful. And I believe that's what then helps us to step into our purpose work even more. And that's, I think, what happens with the book Shame. The woman who brought that topic to me said, like, I just want to, I've done a lot of shame work, I've done a lot of releasing, but I feel like writing my story and writing about generational shame will help me release it even more. And so I think that's really what excites me about book writing, because we're writing to be seen. And just that whole thing about visibility and showing up and unashamedly as who we are brings phenomenal healing.
It really does. And that's one of the things that that I often hear, because I do more group work than I do individual stuff. And the reason why I do that is because it makes a huge difference in terms of like other people being able to know that they're not alone, right? So like their journeys may have been like completely different, and they may have gone on completely different paths, but like those themes like shame and embarrassment and disappointment and all those themes come back up, and people then are able to relate to others that it's like, oh yeah, like I had a very great upbringing growing up, and that wasn't my issue, but then I ended up in high school and ended up with some like mean girls kind of situation, and where somebody else had their upbringing was like horrible, and then they had different experiences throughout, and it's like you have all this different energy that comes up, and people still like those base feelings or base emotions are still what it is that happens. And that is truly where that healing begins. And so like being able to read somebody else's story is so powerful.
Exactly. I was speaking to a lady this morning who's writing her book, and she's looking for some help, and she has a neurological condition and really ended up at rock bottom, and she was looking for books that would help her make sense of it, help her create a positive outlook on it, and she didn't find anything. Because a lot of the books currently still out there are books that are written by experts, about how-to books. But what we need right now is we need more stories of ordinary people who've gone through some challenges and who've gone through them, so that we can see, well, if she's done it, I can too. And so that's the book. She's now writing the book she wished she had when she went through that.
That is beautiful. And I love that. And that's one of the things that I often hear from people, is because like I've shifted and I've changed. And so like if you hear, and I share my stories all the time. And so people will be like, oh my gosh, like you've overcome so much. And it's like, okay, but there's still more, there's still life, there's still things that happen. And so I have a skill set that I can actually pull from, because I've gone through these different things, and these are the skill sets that I've been able to use. And so like, and gratitude is my go-to for everything, is getting into that gratitude and really tapping into that, because like that is literally what saved my life. And so that makes a huge difference in terms of how I look at things. And so like I used to like work, like I said, I worked in mental health and addictions, and I would talk to my clients about gratitude all the time. But until I needed to actually live it in the way that my clients had lived it, then it was like, okay, now I know how difficult it is to get up in the morning and put my feet on the ground. And so like that was my biggest thing, right? So that was but like that was my groundbreaking part of it. So gratitude is my baseline for everything, because like that's, without gratitude, I wouldn't be here. Right. So that makes a huge difference. And so for me, that made a huge difference. And so like that's powerful. So so tell me, is there anything else that you wanted to share with anyone before we headed out?
I think the importance that, the imposter syndrome is still all around us. We're still getting out of that perception that only famous people can write a story, or only the experts can write a story, or you have to be the most amazing writer to be able to write your book or your story. And it's all changed. And we just need to, like, it's shifted. That might have been true in the 1950s, in the 1980s, the 1990s, but now we've moved, as you know, from the Piscean into the Aquarian age, where it's more collective. Like the collective story matters, each individual voice matters. And so we just never underestimate the power that your story has. Just because you live it every day doesn't mean it's normal for somebody else who lives a completely different life and may need to hear exactly your perspective on life.
Absolutely. And so if you are on that fence and don't really know where it is to go or what to do, then I definitely, like I said, it's been about a year since Krystal and I have spoken, but like we were connected on a fairly regular basis prior to that. So like definitely jump in and reach out to Krystal. And I love how she uses those archetypes to be able to help you figure out and explore where things are, and using those elements. So anybody who knows me knows that the elements are, it's all about the elements. And so the fact that you actually do this in the writing is incredible as well. So definitely reach out to Krystal if this is where you're at. Even if you're not sure, just set up a discovery call with her and have a conversation, because you may be very surprised as to what may come out of that. So thank you so much, Krystal, for joining me tonight, and looking forward to being able to connect with you again later. And like I said, I'm back to work full time now, so I will definitely be out and about doing things. So looking forward to connecting again. And so that's another Chatting with Wisdom, and I will see you guys next week. Bye for now.
Bye.